welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. Kane Murray, Don Hutchison and Shaka Hislop here in the studio, and we will start by talking about Mauricio Pochettino, who has become the top target to be the new US men's national team coach. So it's not just there, which we'll get to in a minute, but yes, just a reminder of his resume after starting out at Espanyol and then Southampton. He's gone on to manage Spurs, PSG and Chelsea, the last of whom he parted ways with at the end of last season. It was a sixth-place finish for Chelsea last season and a Carabao Cup runner-up accolade as well. That's how things are looking when it comes to his resume, as Ian Darke now joins us to talk more about it. Ian, you're an Englishman, but you are also the voice of US soccer here with your Go-Go USA ways. How do you feel about this?
I'm never going to be allowed to forget that, am I? What do I feel about it? I think if they did appoint Mauricio Pochettino, you'd have to say that is a big coup for US soccer. 2 years out from the World Cup, getting an elite level manager. Okay, it didn't really work out at Chelsea, but I think he was on the way to getting it worked out when, for some mysterious reason, they decided to part ways with him. That's another story, of course. But, you know, he's managed top players, hasn't he? Paris Saint-Germain, he's taken Spurs to a Champions League final. Players want to play for him. So, okay, he can't make them great players, but I think he can probably mould the best kind of US team with the material available. So it has to be good news if they can get it done. But I think that still has to be a pretty big if.
Shaka, where do you stand on him as a coach here? Because if you look, obviously we've seen the name Jurgen Klopp linked with all these jobs, but we know he's taken a year out. When you think of Jurgen Klopp, you think, okay, he could probably take a big name club job anywhere else right now. Most people would have him. What's Pochettino's stock in this aspect?
I think he's not quite on the same tier as a Jurgen Klopp or a couple others, but that's rarefied air. And Pochettino, I think, is on the level just below that. Given his resume, given all the things that the clubs that he's coached, the personalities that he's managed, the successes that he's had, and in particular, some of the development of players that you've seen, particularly through his time at Southampton. I look back to all the work that he did at Spurs, and you cannot help but be impressed. I think his reputation took a little bit of a knock at PSG, but personally, I feel that's more to do with PSG and the culture of that football club than any of Pochettino's feelings. So as managers go, again, and we kind of saw that play out during the course of this summer. As clubs were looking for new managers, that list of elite managers just seemed to be non-existent in so many regards, where we're talking about Bayern hiring Vincent Kompany. That's kind of where we are right now. So in terms of talking about national team jobs, you totally understand both England and the US going after someone like Pochettino. Now, again, we see who kind of comes out, if those rumors are true, who comes out on top. But if you set your sights at the very highest of managers available, I think Pochettino is there. And again, the key phrase there is managers available.
Now, as you just said, national team jobs, and we alluded to it at the top, he's also the top target when it comes to the England job as well, according to reports. And I see you looking a little bit cynical there about that. Why?
Well, because I said yesterday, and I stand by it, I don't feel comfortable with the English FA just buying a Euros or buying a World Cup. If they went and got Guardiola and paid him 50 million or 100 million, you know, you should have, unless it's an emerging country that need help, I totally get that. But if you're a Frenchman, you want a French manager. If you're a German, the English have got enough English managers to choose from where they don't have to go to Pochettino. Eddie Howe, I think, has done a better job in the last couple of years than Pochettino. I thought Pochettino was very unlucky to be sacked by Chelsea. I know a lot of Chelsea fans are not happy that he was sacked. And this is a guy in Pochettino that was linked with Real Madrid probably 3 or 4 years ago. So his stock's quite high. Probably not in terms of the medals and the honours. But I think, like Shaka said and Ian said, it's what he's done with younger players. He should never have been sacked by Chelsea. He works well with young players. It takes him a little bit of time to get going, as we saw that. The back end of last season was really good. But Pochettino for England, I just don't see it. I don't feel comfortable with it.
I feel like you've half said a little bit yourself, though, there. His ability with young players.
Yeah.
We know that he's someone who can thrive in certain circumstances under pressure. We've seen that. He's been at these big clubs.
Yeah.
It almost feels like you don't agree with it, but you've said a few of his skills that would probably suit the England
Yeah, but I don't agree with the principle. I don't agree with the principle that England, as in the FA, and the national side can go and just buy a Guardiola and give him £50 million, or buy a Jurgen Klopp, or buy a Pochettino. I think, as I said before, unless it's an emerging country, and it's not just little England, not just because I work in the Premier League and live in England, but I just think you should have enough managers in England to take the English job. And there might be one or two American managers thinking, hang on a minute, like, it's a little bit disrespectful to us. There might not be loads of candidates, but it's a knock to them.
For me, I think, while there are some people who feel that for a national team, as with all your players being from one country, so should your manager. I don't agree with that. And I think England has breached that a long time ago between Capello and Göran Eriksson. Nobody accused England then of well, certainly if they did, they failed spectacularly in buying a World Cup or Euros. They felt that those were the best managers available and kind of given the players that they had to handle at the time who was needed. So I feel as though England has already, while there's some countries kind of sticking to that, England has already kind of smashed that to pieces. So for me, and also to Don's point, why it's more palatable in so many regards, is Pochettino's, the bulk of his work, certainly work that he's best known for, has come in English football. So I'm even more sympathetic in that regard. Again, I don't see it as an issue. But Pochettino, kind of given his record and reputation in English football, I don't see it as a problem at all.
You don't think that would be a knock to English managers, though?
Well, English managers will have to speak. I am not at all bothered.
Would you be bothered, Ian, as an Englishman?
I think I'd prefer it to be an English manager. We had Fabio Capello, Sven-Göran Eriksson, and they had very, very good players, like Steven Gerrard and Lampard, Rio Ferdinand, John Terry, the list goes on, Paul Scholes, and the team underachieved. And I think it's right in history that in major tournament history, World Cups, European Championships, I don't think any country other than Greece in 2004 at the Euros have won with a foreign coach. Now, that might just be a bit of history and be slightly irrelevant, but I think Eddie Howe is the right guy for the job. But that's gone very quiet. It looks like he's staying at Newcastle. It's a pretty thin field with English managers. Graham Potter, but he's been out of work for a long time, and his last job was, well, you'd have to say failing at Chelsea. Thomas Tuchel would be interesting if they are going to go this route, because I think he is a big Anglophile. He likes England, he likes working in England, and I think he'd jump at the chance. So it perhaps wouldn't be a sensation if it ended up being him, although he has this habit, doesn't he, of falling out with his bosses.
Ian, if you had the option, though, if you were Pochettino and you had the option of the US men's national team coaching job and the England job, with all the pressure and the expectations that comes with the latter, what would you take?
Well, I think, being realistic, he would take, given that chance, he had both of them on a plate, he would choose England, because England have got a better chance of delivering a big trophy. That's the reality of it.
Do you agree?
I agree. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you got both on the table, the chances of winning something with America is pretty slim. If you go into England, and all managers will back themselves and they'll look at the talent pool, and someone's going to get it right. Southgate was close. He's been to semis, he's been to finals, and he's really close to getting over the line. Managers always back their ability, and at some point, you'd like to think, or they would like to think, that they can get the job done.
OK. Well, let's hear from Tyler Adams, because he's got his thoughts on who the next manager should be in terms of what they're going to bring to the table. He wants a ruthless manager, saying, for myself and the young team and kind of where we're at, I think we need someone that's almost a little bit ruthless, coming in and putting everyone in their place and understanding that, listen, this is what needs to be done and this is the way we're going to do it. And there's no really ifs and or buts. It's not really a conversation. It has to be more of a decision that's made, and this is the way that we are going to play. What's your reaction to what you've heard there, Shaka?
I am totally indifferent to it, and the reason I say that is because, and listen, while I get it, Tyler Adams has asked a question and he has to answer. I think players answer questions kind of clinically sterile as possible. We're only a couple of months removed from Gregg Berhalter being the right man for the US men's national team, and that camp going into the Copa America was the happiest camp that anybody, I think it was Tim Ream was saying he, as experienced as he was, this was the happiest camp he'd ever been involved with. And then all of a sudden, the Copa America implodes, or their performance in it, it implodes, and this change is forced, and now all of a sudden, what we had to make it the happiest camp ever is not what's needed. What we now need, a couple of months. So
we are the most selfish beasts on the planet, footballers. Because when you've got a manager in place, he's the best manager I've ever had. He's amazing. But when you're not in the side, you're like, I'm having him. Yeah. And all of a sudden he gets the sack, and then you get asked a question about a new manager, and you go, that's exactly what we need. Because you want to get off on the right foot, you want to say the right things. So when you look at actually what he said, there's not too much to dissect.
Oh, let me take out, Ian, the fact that he has said, though, we need someone who's ruthless. We need someone who's just kind of going to give us no ifs or buts. This is how we're playing, and this is what you're doing. You're doing it my way. There's something that he said in there, surely, that maybe he feels that they need that strictness maybe in the US men's national team.
Yeah, I think he's right. Let's be honest about this US team. We've been talking about their promise for 2 or 3 years now, but they haven't delivered yet. They flopped at the Copa America. There's no other way of wrapping that up in any kind of candy coating. They flopped. The World Cup is 2 years away. Yeah, I like the sound of what I like Tyler Adams. I think he's a good player. They need to keep him fit. It's a big problem keeping him fit. But here we are with the World Cup. Somebody's got to come in there and mould this team, which does have some talent. It's probably not any kind of golden generation, but does have some talent and could make a decent impression at the World Cup. So they do need a top boss to come in there and knock them into shape. But words are one thing and actions are quite another.
Is Pochettino ruthless and someone who'll tell you the way it is?
I don't think he was at PSG, was he? I mean, that's a difficult...
PSG was just a weird...
It's a difficult 3 or 4 players to manage. But I don't think that's his style. I think, what Tyler Adams is saying about being disciplined, I think probably what he's alluding to, and it's not so much timekeeping or being late or fines, I don't think it's that. It's probably been lost in translation. What they need is someone like a Pochettino who's going to put them into a shape and have a style of play where the US can sort of grab onto and feel as though they're a part of it because they're watching a team that's playing the right way. A Pochettino's style football is very good to watch. So probably that's what they need, where they've probably had managers, and I'm no expert on the situation, and I've not seen loads of it, but what they need a manager who's at another level to what they've had in the past.
Now, Mikel Arteta has shown himself to be inventive and imaginative in his team-building exercises. So what about this from James McNicholas, an article in The Athletic, telling us about his latest mind games. At a dinner with his players, Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta secretly hired a team of professional pickpockets. The sleight-of-hand artists were tasked with going round the tables, pinching phones and wallets from an unwitting first-team squad. The idea was to teach his squad the importance of being ready, alert and prepared at all times. Now, as we know with Don, he wouldn't have got his wallet back. That would have definitely been stolen.
So when can you actually switch off? When can you have a bit of downtime knowing there's pickpockets on the move?
I'm interested in what you think of this latest little tactic from Mikel Arteta.
It's all right. It's not one of the worst. The worst one was when they blasted out "You'll Never Walk Alone" when they were just about to play Liverpool, and that never worked. They got battered. This one I've not really got a problem with because it's probably done with a bit of light-heartedness. They've been away on pre-season. It's been hectic. They've been running. It's hard work pre-season. They played a lot of games, probably a lot of minutes. So it's something that's probably done in a little bit of jest. If you're a player, you're not happy. I can't believe I've just got done there.
I hope it was done in a little bit of jest because we've seen similar from Mikel Arteta, and while it's difficult to really challenge how good he's made Arsenal as title contenders, as the biggest threat to City, particularly over the last couple of seasons, these gimmicks just feel odd to me.
Have you ever had a coach do anything like this with your team?
No.
Never, nothing, even half.
Not the light bulb. The light bulb didn't come into play. Pickpockets didn't come into play. No. It just... I don't get it. I'll be honest. Maybe I'm a little bit too old school for this. I just don't see how this makes you a better footballer. I really don't.
It doesn't make you a better footballer.
So, to your point, I hope it's done as a little bit of fun.
It must be. I was away with the Scotland national side once, and a manager, we played the game Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And when your name got drawn out of a hat, you had to go on we were in a hotel, and you had to go on a stage, and someone got a lamp and shone a lamp right in your face. So you were sweating on the £1 questions and the £5 questions. But it was all done with a bit of jest. It was hilarious. But, you know, that's not going to win them any more points.
Ian, what do you think of the latest mind games from Arteta?
This shades of Oliver Twist, isn't it? I want to know who played the Artful Dodger in the scene. I don't think there are many Arsenal footballers who have to go with a begging bowl up and pleading for more food, are there? I think they're quite well paid.
Yeah, I'm just laughing at who his contacts were for the professional pickpockets as well.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, definitely getting the old contacts.
It's good, though, because if you're in a restaurant... Yeah, if you're in a restaurant and it's happened in a restaurant or wherever you might be, it would be hilarious afterwards. The players would find that quite funny.
I agree with that. Wait till, you know, you get a pocket pick and then nobody can pay. That'd be good. But we've seen weird things from Arteta, man. I don't know.
OK. But we've seen him... Go on, Ian.
I think the pickpockets they've really got to watch out for Manchester City. They're the ones who...
the memes write themselves.
Let's go there, because something in these mind games has obviously been working over previous seasons, because they're getting closer and closer, Arsenal are. When we take a look at the Premier League title odds, it is Manchester City who are favourites, Arsenal behind them and then Liverpool. Ian, is this finally the year that Arteta's Arsenal take it?
No idea at this range. Let's see what the final squad looks like. They haven't done an awful lot of business so far. I think Calafiore, the Italian defender, that's a good signing. They're probably going to use him at left back. I mean, it's a strong squad, and they're capable, I think, of giving City another run for their money. The one thing I think I probably would be a little bit worried about with City is you talk to old pros, and Don and Shaka might know this far better than me. They often say you do need a couple of fresh faces to come through the door for a new season to get everybody on edge. That hasn't really happened at City, has it?
No, good point, that's why I said I'd be stunned if he doesn't move for any player in the market. But when you look at City and you look what Arsenal have got, and it's no disrespect to Arsenal because they're getting closer and they were brilliant last season. They didn't choke last season. City just ran away with it with about 20 games to go. They've got guys like Haaland who can score 50 goals a season. That's the difference. When you try and I would imagine if you try and amalgamate the two 11s and you go Arsenal, Man City, I would imagine there's more Man City players in your 11 than Arsenal. Arsenal probably have, I don't know, 4 or 5.
I don't think there's any question that Arsenal have had the better transfer window. And again, as close as that gap was last season, especially with Julian Alvarez now moving on. But for me, Arsenal still haven't addressed their biggest need, an out-and-out striker. That they get an out-and-out striker. They get somebody like Julian Alvarez. Then I think Arsenal have everything it takes to pip City. But as of right now, I'm still just a little bit on the fence with that.
But we have been hearing about Tottenham's style of play for the year ahead. This is Ange Postecoglou saying, as managers, particularly in the initial period, we have a fair bit of power and influence to say, well, we'll do this my way. And for the most part, players will do that. But then that wears off because eventually they'll want to see some fruits of their labour. Now, obviously, we look at last season, Don, and we see that first half, everything got so exciting. Second half definitely wasn't the same. How far into this season are you going to decide whether we're seeing a season where they're going to have success or not?
3 or 4 games, because I want to know if Postecoglou is not going to be naive as he was last season. I go back to the Chelsea game, crazy game. But then teams start to work Tottenham out. I remember they went to St James's Park and they played with these 2 inverted fullbacks who went central, left the 2 centre-halves completely exposed. And Newcastle and Eddie Howe had done all the research. They played Harvey Barnes on one side, Anthony Gordon on the other side, and Isak through the middle. And they got in behind every 5 minutes. And I'm pretty sure, I'm not sure what were the games afterwards, but Arsenal more or less copied the style. City more or less copied that style. And everyone was working out the way Tottenham were trying to play. So you can't be naive as you were probably at Celtic when you can play whatever style you want because you've got good players, you've got the best players and you win the league. You try and do that against the Liverpools of this world and the Aston Villas of this world and the Man Cities and the Man Uniteds and the Chelseas and the good sides like Newcastle's as well, who's going to have quality players up against you. And I just thought his tactics were so obvious right from the off. If you ask a doggy to play in the inverted position and Pedro Porro, it looks great when they go forward and they score good goals and they score 4 goals and they win 4-3. But you just know on the counter they could get done at any given time. So I want to see, even though he's leaving a little bit on the players there to do a little bit more, I want to see him do a little bit more. I want to see him being a little bit more harder to beat against the big sides away from home.
Even that press conference where we heard this quote from Ian, he was very jovial and happy and very bouncy at the start of it all, yeah. But then he did get a little bit more dour towards the end of it, a little bit like Spurs' season last year. I suppose he has to be realistic as well, right?
Yeah, well, they started, you might remember, with 26 points out of 30 last season, top of the table. But just as Don and Shaka were describing, they kind of ran out of gas and teams started to work them out. Some of their games, to me, look like basketball matches at times, end to end, a bit crazy, a bit mad. It's going to have to be something a little more steady, and I think they're going to have to need more versatility in terms of tactics this year. Some interesting stories circulating about Tottenham that they might be in for Dominic Solanke, who got 19 Premier League goals for Bournemouth. And I noticed the bookmakers have got them odds on to sign Eberechi Eze, the Crystal Palace and England flair player, playmaker, creator. So those would be interesting signings if they happen. But of course, there's a lot of talk at this time of year. But it's interesting, those bookmakers' odds. I think they've gotten something like 6-4 on to get Eze.
Do you remember the Chelsea game, Kay? And the reason why I thought they were naive in that game is they went down to 10 men. They lost 2 or 3 players to injury, and it was tragic watching it. But when you've been in the game a long time and you watch your manager's tactics and you really simplify it and you go, if you're down to 10 men, why would you ask your back 4, I think they played on the day, why would you ask them to defend on the halfway line against 10 men and 2 or 3 players injured? That was the excuse. So Chelsea were the type of side who were in terrible form. Tottenham made it very easy for them, and Chelsea ran offside about 1 million times, and all they needed was to be a little bit patient. They got their goals in the end. But if you're Tottenham, and I was watching it thinking, why wouldn't you just ask the centre-backs on the day? It was Eric Dyer and another, I can't think who it was. Why wouldn't you ask them to defend on the edge of their box, being in a low block? Chelsea would never, ever have scored. So why would you ask 10 men to play on the halfway line? That's when I thought his tactics were naive.
I'm a little bit less critical of Spurs and Pochettino during
I feel like the fans loved that, didn't they?
They didn't love it when they were getting beat.
For me,
worked them out.
For me, Spurs fans would know a whole lot better. Spurs had been a hard watch for a few years now, for far too long. And then all of a sudden, Pochettino comes and is this breath of fresh air and is trying to establish... Postecoglou. What did I say, Pochettino? Postecoglou. Is trying to establish a style of play about Spurs, one that he wanted to be the foundation of their successes. And I feel that leans into, well, what's to come from him. And while I agree with Don in that this season is a big one for Postecoglou because he's established who they are. They know what they do. The players know what they're doing at the best of times. Now they and he has to be able to adjust when things aren't going their way. Had Spurs just been 5th all season, last season, I don't think we'd have been as critical of Postecoglou as we are. But as Ian pointed out, they get off to this start last season where they are just blowing people out of the water and just running them off the park. And then there's this feeling about Spurs and who they are. And then all of a sudden, a little bit of regression. And let's be honest, I don't think pre-season anybody had Spurs finishing in the top 5. So all in all, I think it was a hugely successful season, especially given the fact that Harry Kane left. But it just felt a little flat towards the end because of that start.
Yeah, I wasn't sort of knocking him, even though I said naive, and I stand by that. You have to say, when they were playing under Conte and Jose Mourinho, as Shaka said, they were a dire watch.
Painful.
It was painful. God. So the Tottenham
Sounds
fans...
like you hate him to me.
No, when the Tottenham fans were seeing the football, they were going, this is what we're about. And it was magic. It was amazing.
Waiting for this all day. Shaka's pre-season power rankings.
What? What's wrong now? We can't argue with anything there.
Liverpool 6th.
Yeah, Liverpool is 6th. Where you want them to be? Hold on. This is pre-season power rankings. It's only been friendly so far. So I'm kind of looking at how everybody finished last season, the transfer window that they've just had, and maybe a look ahead to the start of the season.
Didn't Inter get beat a couple of days ago?
In a pre-season friendly?
Yeah, and Liverpool haven't lost.
In a pre-season friendly?
Yeah, so why are they not ahead of Inter?
Because they were pre-season friendlies.
Well, that's
I'm really not sure where you want me to go with this. And they're pre-season friendlies.
Yeah, it's a power ranking.
They're a power ranking as to where the teams are off the back of last season. of the back of last season going into this. Hence why
So you haven't picked that.
I'm giving Stuttgart such a heavy note.
Hold on.
Okay.
So you're
Yes,
not
to
picking
explain
that.
to the audience.
So you're not picking that on pre-season 4.
Not picking up pre-season games, because
Right.
he hasn't been watching every game, not like you, Don.
Exactly.
Not staying
No,
up late to watch
pre-season
every
games are pre-season games. And while you could take that as some kind of an indicator, no, that's easy to dismiss, and depending on who you put out, what players you have available. So I actually think that stuff like your transfer window is probably a bigger indicator.
Ian?
Well, I'm surprised Shaka hasn't put his old club West Ham in that list of 10.
Yeah,
because, I think that's a good signing they've made. Nicholas Füllkrug, the German international striker, like him. I mean, he's 31 now, but £27 million. I could see him getting 15 to 20 goals for West Ham this season. I think they made a great signing. He's gone under the radar. Max Kilman from Wolverhampton Wanderers. Never usually puts a foot wrong most weeks. Wouldn't be far off the England squad. So I think the Hammers might do quite well.
They were 11th. Hammers were 11th.
You lies.
Yeah, they were 11th.
You lies.
That's what it is. They're just
Algorithm's just off.
Yeah, and now you know that it is the way it is. Are you okay with it?
Not really.
Not really.
I'm okay with anything.
So the new season gets underway for Manchester United on Saturday. Yes, this Saturday, Shaka, because I know that shocked you when you heard it. They'll be taking on Manchester City in the Community Shield. We are already here. The new season is upon us. But for Erik ten Hag, he's going to be doing so, as you can see here, without a number of his defenders. And the Manchester United manager has said he will not be taking any risks with players' fitness.
We always want to win, also in all the friendlies. And it's about the trophy, and so we will put out a team that is very competitive to win this trophy. But it's also pre-season, and we don't go into big risks with players. That's also, I think, normal approach into this game.
Ian Darke is with us. Erik ten Hag just called it a friendly, but he did also say it's a trophy as well. How important is it, Ian? Because obviously you can look at it both ways, but if it were to be a blowout by Manchester City, something's got to be made of that, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Manchester United put on their most tactically cute performance of the season in the FA Cup final, only about 11 weeks ago at Wembley. So, yeah, it is kind of like a friendly, but it's a friendly to get you in the mood for the season. And I think it's a friendly that's more important for Manchester United than Manchester City. City are in this every year. They've lost the last 3 that they've been in, but still gone on to win the league title. So don't take too many pointers from it. But it's interesting to have a look and see how the players are shaping up. They're only a few days away from the start of the Premier League season. I think it's more important for United, really, because they need to set the tone. They don't want to get blown out by City, but with a weakened team, they might have to play this 17-year-old Harry Amas, who played on the US tour at left back, because they've run out of left back. So they do look a bit short.
I just think this game matters more in terms of the trophy for Ten Hag, to put it in the locker room, to put it in the cabinet and say, I've put another trophy in there. For Man City, I mean, 7 or 8 of their players are still not even joined up with the squad. So probably, before I seen the injury list, I was probably thinking the other day, Man United will go really strong in this, the chance to win a trophy, where Guardiola will just use it as an exercise to try and get players fitness and get minutes. So now seeing the injury list, you're thinking, what sort of team can he put out?
Well, he said he's not going to take any risks, Shaka. And when you look, he's already starting the season on something of a back foot with the injuries that he's picked up in the pre-season. Could he have that as an excuse?
Absolutely.
Going to be?
Absolutely. And while, yes, there is a trophy at stake, it's, for me, for all intents and purposes, particularly for these two clubs, it's still a pre-season friendly. It's an opportunity to fine-tune under real match conditions and circumstances as to what's about to come in a week's time. And for me, the Community Shield, and while, yes, I keep hearing that this is, there's a trophy at stake, I put the Community Shield just under the Carabao Cup, and I liken the Carabao Cup to icing on the cake. If you don't win anything, particularly for these top clubs, if you don't win anything else, you don't boast of the Carabao Cup. If City only wins the Carabao Cup in a season, nobody's going to say, well, that wasn't a bad season. They won the Carabao Cup. No, nobody. If you win the league and the FA Cup, then all of a sudden people are talking about a treble, and then it becomes significant. Similarly, if you win the league and the FA Cup, then people are thinking of the Community Shield, and they throw that in. But winning that on its own is no good to no good to the top clubs, no good to Manchester United or Manchester City. So while I think there are times where the Community Shield maybe feels bigger. It's for a team, one that's won the league, the other that's won the FA Cup. It's a pre-season friend.
But Ian nailed it, didn't he? City have not won it in 3, but they've won the league. And I remember sat here probably 2 or 3 years ago when Liverpool beat them at Leicester. And I got carried away. I got emotional. I think, right, Liverpool are going to win the league. That performance told me they battered City, and then City went and won the league again. So I just think for Man City and Guardiola, with all the players that's not joined up on the US tour, this is just a massive exercise getting all the players up to speed for the Chelsea game.
What will you be looking out for in this clash, Ian?
It's true that this is going to be a game where we might learn a few things. Joshua Zirkzee, the striker who's been brought in from Bologna, has got a lot of pace. He's the only fit striker that they can play in this game. He might be making his debut here. They've got to put him in somewhere. I mean, as for City, I heard what Don's saying, but I think quite a few of the players who got knocked out earlier in the Euros, although they didn't go on the tour, they have been back training for a couple of weeks now. So I think City can put out quite a good side. They could even put De Bruyne, because Belgium were out in the round of 16, so he's been back in training for 2 weeks. They're probably nearing some kind of fitness to at least play some part in the game. And of course, Erling Haaland, who's got a record of 6 goals in 6 Manchester derbies since he came to Manchester City, he's going to be out there as well. Maybe Bernardo Silva, Jack Grealish, who never went to the Euros, he'll be playing too. Akanji will probably be back in defence. So I think it'll be a half-decent City team. They'll have a stronger team out, I think, or something nearer their first team than United.
When we talk about the season ahead, Shaka, and you just mentioned Liverpool. Last year with Liverpool, we saw this amazing push from them because they knew it was going to be Klopp's final season. Obviously, he announced that pretty early. With Pep, we're unsure whether it will or it won't. Will that be on their minds, and will it have a distraction, or will it be something that you think galvanises them in trying to win it for him in case it is his final season?
I don't think it'll be on their minds. I don't think Pep will allow it to be on their minds. And we've had this speculation over the years with Pep. Never really believed that he was going, but there was always this, will he, won't he, and his contract is running out, and it never distracted them then. And though it feels a little bit more real now, we're still not sure. And I still think that Pep doesn't allow that to be a distraction. I think what maybe plays into the minds a little bit more is we're recognising that some of City's key players over the years, Kevin De Bruyne, etc., are coming to the end of their own times. And whether it's between Kevin De Bruyne coming to the end or other players really starting to establish themselves, City will find that reason to be as good as they always have. I just feel I've never kind of bought into successful teams kind of, we've won so much and not being motivated. Top players are motivated regardless of they could be playing in their back gardens against the next door neighbour. So I don't feel that City and their player, this current squad, is any different at all.
It feels a little bit different if Guardiola was to announce in the coming weeks that he was going to leave. It would still feel a little bit different because Klopp's a very emotional manager.
Right.
And every other week when Liverpool played at Anfield, it was emotional. The scenes and the atmosphere at Anfield were incredible, the home games. I just feel as though Guardiola won't do that. He won't announce. And what I heard from outside was Klopp had a conversation with his backroom staff, and one of them leaked it, and the press had the story, and they were going to run the story, which then forced Jurgen Klopp to come out and make the statement. That's what I heard. It might be wrong, but that's what I've heard. I don't think Guardiola does that. I think the players, like Shaka said, I think he will have the conversation with the players. There's too much competition. Arsenal are getting closer. Liverpool are getting closer. He can't afford to have anything in the back of the players' minds, because anything, and the smallest of margins, Arsenal or Liverpool could beat them.
So going back to Ian's point, though, just before I go back to Ian on this being a distraction, When you look at their season ahead, now without Julian Alvarez, and obviously there's a question mark there as to whether they need to bring someone else in. Okay, the Savinho come in.
Yeah.
Has he got enough to win the league again this year?
He has got enough, providing all of his main players stay fit. But he's talked about Erling Haaland having little niggles and having little muscle injuries. And Julian Alvarez was the perfect player to either start alongside him or come off the bench or start and play an hour and come off. I'd be stunned if Guardiola doesn't go into the market. I don't think it might be anyone that we've heard of in terms of like an Ivan Toney or a Ollie Watkins or someone like that. You might have to go and try and find a new Julian Alvarez from Argentina or Brazil or a South American country where the fee's amazing, by the way, 95 million. So it gives Man City scope to try and do a lot of research and data to try and get a player in for probably half the fee. But I'd be stunned if he went into this season without another number 9.
Any distractions ahead this season, Ian, for the City players, not knowing what's going to happen with Pep Guardiola at the end of the campaign?
Well, I've given up really trying to question Pep Guardiola's ability to motivate that City squad. He's reeled off 4 successive titles. He'd love to make it 5. He might not even go next summer. We don't know that. I think he gave a quote on the American tour, didn't he, where he said, "Why do I want to go? I'm having a ball doing this." So, I mean, we'll find out. I'll tell you one player City are interested in and would sign if they could, and that's Bruno Guimaraes of Newcastle United, because they want somebody who can give Rodri a little bit of a rest, because he's having to play a heck of a lot of games for club and country. So they're definitely looking at in that area. So whether they could make that happen, I mean, Newcastle fans would hate it. Probably, I doubt it. But they might give it a go.
Don's body language
Never liked Ian.
He's hated
I never liked Ian in the first place.
Just a
what's he got to bring up Bruno Guimaraes to Man City for?
Okay,
Keep it a secret.
put the Newcastle love aside.
I understand why Man City would go for him 100%, because Rodri's just this player that's just so brilliant. And it's proved, the stats prove it, when he's not in the side, they tend to struggle. I don't think they're particularly similar. I think Bruno Guimaraes is a sort of number 8 where he likes to get forward and make things happen. The contradiction to that is Rodri scored some big goals, yeah, but he's more of a patroller number 6. So, Ian, you're not having him. And Man City fans are not having him.
All right,
take that.
Let's get a prediction.
I've got no iron in the fire, Don. I'm just
we're going to make you pick either Manchester United or Man City for this weekend in the Community Shield, though, Ian. Who are you going for?
It's really hard to predict a game like that. It wouldn't surprise me if it's a draw, an entertaining draw that goes to penalty kicks.
All right.
Basically, what he said there is a Man City win, a Man United win, or a draw.
That's a big fence that Ian chose there.
Which is not far wrong.